I feel that any film is a fake world by the very virtue of how things are seen, and that you're being presented something via a lens, which is just not how people look at things. I think all films really are non-real spaces because they're non-real time and they're non-real things, and they're primarily just stories.
Richard Ayoade is known to have a surreal feeling in his films, yet he would disagree as he believes that all films are surreal by nature. His two movies are Submarine and The Double, which are both brilliant examples of this. While Ayoade has worked on music videos and series episodes, these are his only two films. Both were released at Toronto International Film Festival, Submarine in 2010 and then The Double in 2013. His films have various similarities, including a common cast, narrative representations, cinematography and lighting. Ayoade often uses lighting to draw attention to one character or to bring emotion to a scene. My favourite example of this is in The Double, when Hannah is leaning against a wall. This seems so unnatural to me, but also very beautiful. I think that was Ayawade's point, as the character is idolised by the main character, and the lighting represents his isolated fixation on her. In Submarine, the lighting is generally diegetic, but often used to reflect the emotions of the characters, whether that's sparkling red for love, or repeated flashing for anxiety and excitement. Another unusual technique Ayoade uses is where he isolates a character in a dark space with a bright light directly on them, often when they are speaking, but sometimes to give atmosphere while describing their appearance, personality, or habits. Colour is another thing that Ayoade uses to enhance emotion, often showing a character with a glow of blue or red. Again, it's diegetic, but irregular in normal life. The style of the colour grading often follows the narrative. The Double is about a man who is so forgettable and unremarkable that the film colour grading represents this with washed out grey and brown tones. He occasionally uses brighter colours, but for the more memorable things in his life, like Hannah for example. Submarine is set from Oliver's perspective and dream of being a filmmaker, and often the scenes are also washed out. Wes Anderson is known for having shots which look as if they could have been an animated painting, but I think Ayoade has a very recognisable style too. For me, I think most of Ayawade's shots look as if they've been shot on an old camera. This ties in with the rest of the cinematography and camera use. Both films repeatedly use zooms to bring the camera into close-ups or zoom out quickly. In Submarine, this is best used for connecting the characters and giving information about them, whereas in The Double, it's either used for moments of realisation or exhilaration. The camera tracks, pans and zooms, allowing the audience to feel the character's rush of emotion. The camera movement often feels unnatural, smooth and quick, providing a pace for the film and keeping the audience attached to the scene. Another key thing to note is Ayawade's use of symmetry, again much like Anderson, to create stunning shots that are either filled with beauty, isolation or intensity. Both Ayawade's films have an incredible soundtrack. Submarine heavily features Alex Turner, whose music seems to be aimed at teenagers. This is ideal for the coming-of-age genre. It feels exactly like what Oliver Tate would listen to. The original soundtrack for the movie features both childish and dramatic music, which is exactly what it feels like to grow up. Everything feels like the end of the world and slowly childhood slips out of your fingers. My favourite, Jill Tate, which is featured in the trailer, has this isolated, quirky atmosphere, which is again another expression of growing up. The Double has a more sinister soundtrack, often melancholy and looming. However, the Mr. Papadopoulos track uses the sound of The Office, like the copy machine and typewriters, to create a rhythmic backing to enhance the beat of the scene. Some of the music has a more upbeat theme, often as if there's a standoff about to occur and Simon is the hero. Interestingly, while many of the songs are dramatic or emotional, a lot of the music feels like a tango, which is what the two characters find themselves in. Even the pieces of music, I Am a Ghost and A Boy Held Up by String, feel as if they could be a careful dance between the characters, like a dangerous ballet. While the soundtrack gives so much to the movies, I also find the use of sound like train tracks, alarms, camera flashing and machines seem to set off a fight or flight response, and this builds the anticipation in the scenes. While both films are based on books, I feel Ayoade has put a little of himself into the movies. Both films involve a main character who is a little different and isolated. In Submarine, he is a teenager who dreams of one day being a filmmaker, and in The Double, he is an adult constantly reminded that he is unremarkable and completely replaceable. I feel these characters are inspired by Ayawade's isolation in childhood due to being a little different, and his fear in adulthood of being nothing. In both films, there is a love interest who also serves as a goal for the main character. Both Simon and Oliver long to be special and with the woman they love. Overall, Richard Ayowade's authorship themes include his use of colours, narrative, surrealism and cinematography, which just highlights his talents as a director and filmmaker.